Animation as we know it has been around for nearly 140 years now, starting with mechanical children's toys in the Victorian era, such as the zoetrope and the praxinoscope. This would later be combined with the movie camera as invented by the Thomas Edison Company to give us novelty shorts like Winsor McKay's Gertie the Dinosaur, Max Fleischer's Coco the Clown, or even Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. This novelty art form would blossom into a full-on industry over the next century. Today we will be interviewing a young professional going into that industry, my friend Calvin South. Here's him now. Welcome to the interview.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
I'm glad to have you here. So you want to be an animator?
Yes, sir.
Alright.
Absolutely.
How old were you when you decided to be an animator?
I was about 6 years old. When I was in elementary school, we had a career day where everyone would be like, I want to be a fireman, I want to be a doctor. I didn't want to be those things.
Right.
So I looked at Super Mario 64 and said, I want to make that.
And of course, back in those days, people were like, yeah, right.
Oh yeah, no. There was absolutely no career path intended for my age group in 2003.
People are still like that somewhat, though, too. I mean, when I'm at work and somebody asks, what are you going to school for? I tell them it's either, that's really cool, or, oh.
Yeah, pretty much. I distinctly remember I was just starting high school. We were all being pulled into a room with guidance counselors to help us figure out which classes to take for our intended career path. I told them I want to make video games, and they stared at me.
Right, yeah. And it's frustrating.
But fortunately, things have improved since then, especially here in Plano, Frisco, that sort of region. Because my high school, once I moved here to Texas, actually had dedicated classes for programming, for animation, for actual game design. So a big part of what's available to you often depends on just where you are sometimes.
Did you have any influences from family in this?
I did. My dad always wanted to be a cartoonist growing up, and then that turned into becoming an animator when he studied back at BYU. He learned 2D animation, 3D animation, and I actually was able to get an early start on learning some of that because he would come home with the software he needed off and on CD. And I was able to try out Adobe Flash, Autodesk Maya, probably far earlier than most people, especially in my previous town, were capable of.
So speaking of software, what are some more, recent tools that you've been using in the industry, and how do they compare to, some of the older tools?
So a lot of the tools actually are just the older tools, but better these days. Autodesk Maya has been around since the late 90s. Flash has changed from being Macromedia Flash up to the current Adobe Animate, but there are still a lot of tools available now that make things so much easier for 3D stuff, texture work.
Mm-hmm.
But now there's software also by Adobe called Substance Painter, which lets you load up the 3D model and draw directly on top of it.
So artificial intelligence, that's the thing now. Where do you see this going?
The important thing to keep in mind is that now the technology is already here and being involved in things, it's not going to go away. It's going to stick around, it's going to keep improving. The important things to consider are things like rights and where it fits into business, because a lot of people see AI as a sort of replacement for the artist, whether that's writing, drawing, whatever, because it's cheap, fast, and a lot of people will see the outcome and go, yeah, that's close enough, and take it.
Yeah.
But what's important is with legislation in place to make sure that people still maintain their ability to provide work as artists, to make sure that AI stuff remains primarily as workflow assistance more than anything. Mm-hmm. I can see it actually being eventually a good thing. It's using Substance Painter, for example, it doesn't use AI yet, to my knowledge, but I already skip a lot of work by using a lot of pre-made stuff. If I want a rocky material, there are pre-made rocky materials that I can just build off of. AI would be able to do something very similar. It would be able to help me create a basis of I need some sort of rocky shape give me that, okay, now I can artistically touch it up and make it look better in the way I really want it to. But this helps me cut out a lot of menial work.
Do you have any good advice for people coming into the industry, trying to take these courses, thinking about this as a career someday?
If you have an opportunity to experiment, whether it's through Blender or through being in a college course, take that opportunity. Bare minimum, you'll find out you don't like it. And then you can just move on from there. It's maybe one class wasted at most. But if you find that you like it, stick with it. Follow up on it, create things, create more things, put your work online.
All right. Thank you.
Sure thing. Thank you.
As you can see, it is all too easy for us as consumers to take animation for granted. There is a lot of blood, sweat, tears, and toil that goes into it, as well as not necessarily being taken seriously by the rest of the film industry or even by networks and producers themselves. But today I hope you've gained a newfound respect for this art form and for this entire industry, and I would hope that you yourself might consider going into it at some point. Until next time, take care.